Welcome to today's Explainer. So we keep seeing this incredibly frightening headline everywhere about AI coming in and just wiping out half the jobs in the world. Today, we're going to cut right through all that noise and figure out if you should actually be panicking or if maybe, just maybe, the reality is a little different. Picture this. You wake up tomorrow, grab your morning coffee, and see this exact phrase plastered across your newsfeed. AI has replaced half the jobs in the world. Honestly, would you panic? Would you immediately start wondering if your own job is next on the chopping block? Look, it's a completely natural reaction. This fear is literally everywhere right now. It feels like every single week brings some new, dire warning that AI is coming for our livelihoods. But hey, before you grab a cardboard box and start packing up your desk, let's all just take a deep breath. The real story here is definitely complicated, but honestly, it is a whole lot less scary than what those sensational headlines make it sound like. In this explainer, we are doing zero hype. None. We're just going to use clear logic, real history, and some everyday examples. By the end of our time together, you're going to be able to look at this topic with total clarity, instead of just reacting with that gut-level anxiety. To get some perspective, we actually have a pretty rich history of totally panicking over new technology. Seriously, back in the 1970s, people were absolutely terrified that the pocket calculator was going to completely replace mathematicians and accountants. Then, the 1980s hit, and the massive fear was that factory machines would replace every single manual worker. Fast forward to the 1990s, office computers were supposed to wipe out typists and clerks entirely. Yet, time and time again, the human workforce didn't just survive, we adapted. And you know what's really wild about what happens after that initial panic? Technology doesn't just delete jobs, it reshapes them. And more importantly, it creates entirely new industries. Think about it for a second. Nobody in the 1980s could have ever, in a million years, predicted jobs like an app developer, a social media manager, or a data scientist. The foundational technology to even create those industries simply didn't exist yet. History proves this consistent pattern. Innovation doesn't just close doors, it builds entirely new frontiers. Now, I know exactly what you might be thinking. You're sitting there going, okay, sure, that's history, but AI feels distinctly different. And you know what? You're absolutely right. So what makes AI different from, say, a giant factory machine? Well, earlier machines mostly replaced physical labor, right? Lifting, building, manual repetition. AI, however, is now assisting with thinking tasks, writing, analyzing, summarizing, coding. That naturally makes us way more nervous because it's stepping into our intellectual space, the very things that make a job feel uniquely ours. To really understand why you shouldn't be panicking, we kind of need to redefine how we look at our work. A job is not just one single monolithic thing you do. It's actually a bundle of many different, multifaceted tasks. So the absolute crucial point here is understanding the massive difference between an AI doing one single task versus an AI taking over an entire job. Handing off a specific task is simply not the same thing as replacing the professional. Let's ground this in the real world with a classic example, a teacher. Can AI assist a teacher by drafting a solid lesson plan or instantly creating a quiz with practice questions? Absolutely. It's great at that. But can an AI comfort a nervous student who's crying on their first day of school? Can it build nuanced, trusting relationships with concerned parents? No way. AI can totally automate those repetitive, structural tasks, but the deep emotional connections and genuine human understanding, it literally cannot touch those. So think of your daily job like a giant pie. AI might swoop in and take over one specific slice, the repetitive, predictable tasks. But look at the rest of that pie. Human judgment, empathy, creativity, those slices remain firmly 100% in your domain. AI isn't eating the whole pie, folks. It's just handling the slice that usually bogs you down anyway, and that frees you up to focus on the elements that actually require a highly skilled human touch. Okay, let me throw one of my absolute favorite analogies at you from our source material today. Did the food processor replace the chef? Really think about it. A food processor can chop vegetables infinitely faster than any human hands ever could. But did that machine ruin the culinary profession? Did high-end restaurants just fire all their chefs and plug in a bunch of appliances? Of course not. Instead, the food processor just became an essential tool in the kitchen. And that is exactly how we need to view artificial intelligence. It's essentially the ultimate knowledge food processor for repetitive work. It speeds up the boring manual stuff, dicing the digital onions, so to speak, so the human can focus on the parts that require real, undeniable skill, the flavor profile, the creativity, the beautiful presentation, and the precise timing.
Now, let's be completely honest for a second, because just giving you vague reassurance isn't going to help anyone future-proof their career. Jobs that rely heavily on highly repetitive, predictable tasks, stuff like data entry, basic transcription, or reading simple customer support scripts, those are going to be highly affected, and they are going to change fast. Why? Because pattern recognition is literally what current AI does best. But jobs relying on deep judgment, complex physical dexterity in unpredictable environments, and true emotional connection, those are far less affected. The big takeaway here is that our smartest response is adaptation, not denial. If we look back through history, the people who struggled the absolute most during massive technological shifts weren't necessarily the ones who lacked talent or didn't work hard. The biggest struggle almost always comes from refusing to adapt to the new tool. Think about professional photographers when digital cameras first hit the scene. The ones who dug their heels in and refused to learn the new tech, they struggled immensely. But those who embraced digital, they combined their existing creative eye with the new tools to work faster, try new things, and ultimately became immensely more successful.
Which leads us to the absolute core takeaway of this entire explainer. This is a massive paradigm shift, so listen closely. In many cases, it won't be AI replacing humans. It will be humans using AI replacing humans who don't. Just let that sink in for a second. Your real competition isn't some faceless algorithm. Your competition is the professional in your field who has figured out how to use that algorithm to do their job 10 times more efficiently. All right, so let's get into the practical side of this. Here's a highly actionable 4-step framework you can start using literally today to future-proof your career. Step 1, get curious, not fearful. Mystery is always scarier than knowledge, right? Step 2, start actually using AI as a tool in your specific field, whether you're a marketer brainstorming ideas or a programmer checking lines of code. Step 3, strengthen those human-only skills. And step 4, stay adaptable. The specific tools are inevitably going to change, but the skill of learning them quickly, that's permanent. So you might be wondering, what exactly are those human-only skills we need to strengthen? They're your unautomated traits: communication, empathy, leadership, critical thinking, and complex judgment. AI severely struggles to replicate any of these. If you're leaning into these areas in your daily work, you aren't just protecting your job, you are making yourself exponentially more valuable in the current market. These traits aren't just nice-to-haves anymore. They're becoming highly prized commodities. So bringing it all together, the absolute smartest move you can make for the next decade is definitely not trying to compete against artificial intelligence. It's learning to collaborate with it. The future doesn't belong to AI alone. It belongs to the people who understand how to use AI wisely. Will some tasks disappear? For sure. But entirely new roles are going to emerge that we don't even have names for yet. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on today. How will you use AI as your new food processor? What repetitive, incredibly time-consuming tasks can you hand off today so you can get back to the high-level, creative work that only you can do? Think about that, get super curious, and start exploring. And hold on to that curiosity, because in our next explainer, we'll be breaking down the 5 AI tools anyone can use in 2026, with absolutely no prior experience needed. Thanks so much for joining me, keep adapting, and I'll see you next time.